Hello, I'm going to talk to you about how Bob Ross made me appreciate nature and the changes happening in it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about climate change through Bob Ross's paintings that he gave me. Now, January 11th, 1983, PBS station in Muncie, Indiana, aired The Joy of Painting for the first time. If you've ever watched the show, Bob always painted happy little trees. He always painted mountains that are covered in snow, beautiful homes with fireplaces that are going, lakes, rivers, streams, pastoral scenes that are beautiful. And he taught millions of people to appreciate nature, to have the joy in painting these things. And what I'm going to show you is how I learned from Bob how to paint through some of my paintings, and talk to you about the climate that's been changing since Bob did his paintings in the early 80s. In 1983, the Earth had been warming at that time since the early 2000s, actually, or the early 1900s, actually. We've been gaining temperature every decade. The Earth has been warming by about 1.13 degrees Fahrenheit every decade. In the 80s, in addition to Bob painting was the beginning of that, it was also the change in the Earth's climate even more drastically, because Bob started to paint in 83 and the temperature started going up by 0.32 degrees Fahrenheit every decade. Where we sit right now in 2020, we are actually 1.71 degrees warmer than Bob was in 1983 as a global temperature. But it can still be a beautiful, beautiful image, you know, the heat, the change, the colors. Now, that heat that was rising across the globe actually has caused other issues. You see, the warming air and the warming land has melted the snow in the Arctic, so the mountaintop ranges that Bob painted that were covered in snow are now bare rock. And they're still beautiful to look at, but it's a little bit different than when Bob painted them. The issue is that the water that's melting from the glaciers, the snow, has to go somewhere, and it goes downhill from the Arctic into the oceans. All that melting ice and snow from Greenland, Alaska, the Arctic Circle, is dropping lots and lots of fresh water into the saltwater ocean. This is a big issue in the Atlantic, where that induction of fresh water is causing a drastic change to the current that keeps the ocean flowing. You see, warm water, that's salt water, travels pretty quick, but when you add a lot of cold fresh water to it, it slows it down. Now that's causing a lot more changes to the Atlantic Ocean, particularly. Slowing down the flow of the water means the storms have more time to grow bigger and get stronger. In the year 2020, we had 17 named storms in the Atlantic Ocean. 10 of those were hurricanes, and 7 of those were major hurricanes. In fact, they have to reclassify major hurricanes since the last storm of 2020, which had seen wind speeds they've never recorded before. Big major changes. Now, it can be beautiful. If you've ever watched the ocean waves roll in, you'll see that it's a beautiful sight, but those rolling in ocean waves also cause damage. You see, those big storms are destroying the coastline. The Atlantic seaboard is being eroded away from these major storms. The storm surges, the flooding, all this is causing damages there. In fact, Florida had 494 miles of pristine beaches along the Florida coastline that have been eroded away because of these storms and the rising sea levels, and because of the damage that we have caused as well, trying to stop that. These eroding beaches are not only destroying the tourism in Florida, it's also destroying the natural habitats of the animals that live there. So now they're being displaced as well. In addition to the heat, we get strange occurrences of weather everywhere else. I'm sure you remember here in Texas in February 10th, 2021, we actually had a Arctic front come through and drop the temperature from the 20s into the teens and then into the single digits. And by February 10th, we had ice and sleet covering the ground.